today I'm going to talk to you about packing for a knitting retreat. And specifically packing for going to a retreat if you have to fly. And this has come up a couple of times before. And obviously, most of the time I go to retreats, I go to something that's fairly local, and so I'm driving. But when I went to Zombie Knitpocalypse, I was driving. But I have a very small car. I mean, I wouldn't say very small, but I have a small car. And I was picking up 2 additional passengers along the way. Now, when I go to Knitopia, my car is completely packed with just my own personal belongings and my knitting projects and my chair and whatnot. I could not get a person in my car at all. I have the entire back seat, the front seat, everything is packed to the gills. So when I went to Zombie Knitpocalypse, I packed like I was flying because I knew that I would not have that much space. So I made some notes about this because I have been asked in the past how to pack for a retreat. And I've talked about how to pack if you're driving to a retreat, the things you take. But I'm going to specifically talk about today how you should pack if you're flying. Now, at the end, I'm going to mention a couple other things if you are driving, but I'm going to focus primarily on the packing for flying. Now, obviously, when you're flying, you might have a suitcase that you're going to check. I don't always check luggage when I fly. In fact, I rarely check luggage when I fly because I'm always nervous that they're going to lose my luggage. Now, if you are flying and you don't have a fear of your luggage getting lost, then you can take a larger suitcase and you shouldn't have difficulty fitting everything in your suitcase that you need to. But I can tell you a few things that you can cross off your list right from the get-go. The first thing is, let's say you're going to a retreat that is a weekend retreat. So you're arriving Thursday or Friday and you have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, what have you. So you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have 72 hours of straight knitting time. And you think, I can get a lot done in 72 hours of knitting. Yeah. Don't think that way. Because knitting retreats are so different than you at home for 72 hours over the weekend or what have you watching knitting podcasts. Because there are so many other activities going on at a knitting retreat than what you might have going on at home if you're just sitting at home knitting. When I go to knitting retreats, whether it's Knitopia or Knitting in the Mitten or wherever, I always overestimate how much I can get done at the retreat. Because, like I said, there are a lot of activities. There's usually classes, other group activities going on, demonstrations at Knitopia and Knit in the Mitten and most retreats. There are some type of classes or demonstrations, and not to mention group activities. So, and then you have all the time that you spend just chit-chatting with the other knitters. When we're at Knitopia, we go to sit down for a meal, and you will see people still sitting at the dinner table 2 hours after the meal because they are into a conversation and they just don't get up. They've sat down for dinner and they just chat at the dinner table like most people normally do when you get together with friends and family. So, and they're not knitting. Sometimes they might go and grab their knitting and bring it back, but that's time that they could have been knitting, but they were chatting with the other participants of the retreat. So there are going to be lots of time that you are not going to be working on your personal projects. In fact, at Knitopia this year, because of all the different projects that we were doing at Knitopia, I told people you could bring 1 or 2 projects and have more than enough to keep you busy throughout the whole 12 days. So what I'm telling you is that pack a lot less knitting projects than you think that you will actually do. And I have made a note to pack 1/4 of what you think you will get accomplished. Because, like I said, there's so many other things that are going on that you will want to be involved with. So, pack less knitting. Pack simple projects like stockinette socks or stockinette, any kind of stockinette shawl or garter stitch shawl or something that is simple knitting that you can just knit on while you're chatting with everyone. The other most important thing that you need to remember to take to a knitting retreat is some sort of notebook or something to take notes in. Either plan on taking a notebook for notes, for demonstrations and classes, or using your phone or tablet to take notes. And the thing is even if there isn't specific classes that you're taking at the retreat, there will be discussions that are happening. If you are sitting around with a bunch of knitters just talking about different tools and different techniques and different patterns and whatnot, different yarns, everything that you discuss when you're with a bunch of knitters, there might be something that you want to remember, and you will be on overload. So have a notebook or plan on using your phone or tablet. I kept everything in my phone whenever something was mentioned, or if I was checking out somebody's project and I was like, oh my god, that yarn is fabulous, I must get some of that yarn at some point. I would put it in my phone. I'd put it in a notes app on my phone. So I would remember, because, like I said, overload at a retreat. So you need to have some type of notebook to write down your notes. And same thing goes for classes. If you're taking classes at a retreat, you might want to keep some notes of what you learn in the class. And even if it isn't a structured class, like a little ad hoc something or other, because at Knitopia, we are constantly, everybody's just sitting around and they're like, oh, I've never learned how to do this technique or that technique, and somebody shows them how to do it. So there's all these different little kind of breakout sessions where people are sharing knowledge with one another, and you just need some type of notebook or something to jot those down, because you are going to be on overload after attending a retreat, especially if it's a 12-day retreat, and you might forget what happened on day 1 after 12 days, which is why I kept a list on my phone. Another item that you might want to pack in your suitcase are some of your hand knits. Like all knitters, I love to see what other people have done. I like to see the finished object. I like to touch and feel the yarn. I like to see the colors in person. So it's always nice to bring a hand knit of yours that you can show off. Now at Knitopia, we do a sort of fashion show, and maybe the retreat that you're going to will have some sort of fashion show, or maybe you will just be wearing your hand knit and somebody will come up and say, oh wow, that's really nice, what's the pattern? So bring some of your own hand knits so that you can show off your handiness at the retreat. Another thing you might want to consider is taking a small gift for your roommates. If you are sharing sleeping quarters or bathroom facilities with someone else, you might just want to bring them a little something special. It can be anything. It could be something that you handmade. It can be, some yarn, whatever you want to bring. You use your own creativity. This type of gift is not mandatory. It's not necessary, but it's always fun to receive an extra little goodie when you go to a retreat. Another thing is, even if you're flying, driving, what have you, when you are going to your retreat, I highly recommend that you leave some empty space in your suitcase. Because even if there is not a vendor market on site at the retreat, like there is not a vendor market at Knitopia, however, there are people who come to Knitopia that do bring stuff for sale. And many of the other retreats do have vendor markets right at the retreat. But even if there is not a vendor market at the retreat, more than likely you will have opportunities to go to yarn stores or crafting stores or any kind of other store, and you have the potential of bringing home more stuff than you brought. In addition to the fact that most retreats have goodie bags and door prizes, so you will need to have space in your suitcase for those types of things. Now, if you are flying, I recommend that you have a carry-on bag that you can stash some of those things in, so that when you go home, you can take that on the plane with you, and if your suitcase does get lost, you can still have all your goodies. Another thing is, if you are checking a suitcase, a lot of suitcases that come in sets will stack inside one another. So what you might want to do is take the size that is a carry-on size and put that inside your other suitcase and pack your suitcase inside your suitcase to fly out. Then when you come home, you have two suitcases. You can check one bag of luggage for all your dirty clothes, which if your suitcase gets lost at that point, who cares? It's a bunch of dirty clothes. And then you can carry on all your goodies with you in your carry-on suitcase. So that is also an option as well. Now, I did mention that I would talk a little bit about things to take to a retreat if you are driving. I'm just going to mention a couple of things because there are a couple of things that I have found that are the best thing that I could take to a knitting retreat. And those are, first of all, my comfortable chair. My IKEA chair that I sit in to knit when I'm at home, I like to take to Knitopia with me. When I go to Knitopia, it is a 12-day retreat. And I'm there a full 12 days. Am I there? I might even be there almost 13 days. I can't remember. No, I think it's 12 days. I'm there 12 days. And when you are sitting for long periods of time, you need to have a comfortable seat. Now, some retreats, you will probably be doing a lot of activities, so you may not be sitting for extreme long periods of time. But there are times at Knitopia, for instance, that I will sit for 4 or 5 hours and just knit. So it's nice to have a comfortable chair. The IKEA chair is quite cumbersome and bulky, but it is well worth the extra effort to break it down and put it in my car and whatnot to get it to Knitopia and home from Knitopia. And if you don't have an IKEA chair, but you want to take a comfortable chair, there are also the pop-up chairs that I also have that I've taken to other retreats. You can get them at Bed Bath & Beyond. They are like the big club chairs that just kind of fold out. They usually are on sale at like Bed Bath & Beyond and Target and places like that around the time that the college students are buying things for their dorm rooms. So August, early September. Usually by the middle of September they are all on clearance. So you might want to wait and see if you can get something on clearance. I bought 4 chairs a couple years ago for like $10 a piece. So that's another option if the IKEA chair is too bulky and too much to deal with to go to retreat. Plus, if it's only a weekend retreat, the pop-up club chair might be perfectly fine for a weekend retreat, whereas a 12-day knitting retreat at Knitopia or another long retreat, you might want something that's a little bit more comfortable. In addition to my chair, I like to take an extra lamp. I usually, in the past, I have brought a standing light, a light that is a floor lamp that has an light in it. But a couple years ago at Knitopia, a couple of people brought this floor lamp from IKEA, and everybody fell in love with them, and they are so much more smaller. They're smaller and more condensed, and they're easier to travel. So a lot of people ended up getting the floor lamp from IKEA. In addition to that, a lot of people have now gotten the storage ottomans, because when you're sitting, all your stuff is just everywhere. I mean, when you bring your knitting bag, you bring your big knitting bag thinking, I'm going to get so much knitting done. I've got 72 hours of straight knitting time. I'm going to just knit, and I'm going to do 18 projects, and they're all going to be done when I leave. Well, now you have all these projects and nowhere to put them. So having a storage ottoman that you can put all your projects inside, it'll keep your area a little bit more neat as you're, at your retreat. So I hope all those tips will help you in packing for your next knitting retreat, whether you are flying or driving. I hope you have enough idea of what you should and shouldn't pack for your knitting retreat. If you have any questions about packing for a knitting retreat, or have any questions about something that you should or shouldn't take, please feel free to contact me at knittingblooms@gmail.com or on Ravelry as Blooming Knitter. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
As always, thanks for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Please feel free to contact me with your comments or suggestions, as I am always trying to improve the show. You can find me on Ravelry, Instagram, and YouTube as Blooming Knitter. You can also find me on Plurk, Twitter, and Pinterest as Blooming Knitter, but I don't frequent those sites as often. I post show updates on Twitter and Facebook, and sometimes to Google Plus and Plurk. I am Miss Aerobics on MyFitnessPal and Fitbit. You can always find all the old episodes as well as links to the tutorials on the blog at www.knittingblooms.com. And you can also follow the show on Facebook. You can email me at knittingblooms@gmail.com, and show notes can be found at knittingblooms.com.